Republican minority House Leader Kevin McCarthy said Wednesday he will not cooperate with the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. The panel had asked McCarthy to voluntarily testify about Trump's state of mind in the run-up to the riot and in the week following the attack on Congress. McCarthy slammed the committee as illegitimate and said his private conversations with Trump were, quote, not remotely related to the violence that unfolded at the Capitol, unquote. President Trump cut short a telephone interview with National Public Radio Tuesday after he was repeatedly called out over his lies about the 2020 election. Trump hung up less than 9 minutes into what was supposed to have been a 15-minute interview with host Steve Inskeep after repeating conspiracy theories about Joe Biden's Electoral College win. NPR aired the exchange Wednesday.
You have to solve the problem of the presidential rigged election of 2020.
Mr. President, if I'm one more question. I want to ask about a court hearing yesterday on January 6th. Judge Amit Mehta, he's gone. Okay.
During the interview, Trump branded Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell a loser for failing to back Trump's unsupported claims about the election. On Capitol Hill, Biden is holding a lunchtime meeting today with Senate Democratic caucus. The White House is pressuring Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to support a change to Senate rules that would allow Democrats to pass a pair of major voting rights bill with a simple majority, circumventing a Republican-led filibuster. On Wednesday, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer outlined a plan to bring the voting bills to a debate using a parliamentary maneuver. The move would still leave room for Republicans to filibuster final passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. On Wednesday, Senate Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell blasted President Biden over his voting rights speech in Atlanta, Georgia earlier this week when Biden accused Republicans of siding with Jefferson Davis over Abraham Lincoln.
12 months ago, this president said disagreement must not lead to disunion. But yesterday he invoked the bloody disunion of the Civil War, to demonize Americans who disagree with him.
In 2015, an old photo emerged showing McConnell posing in front of a large Confederate flag at a Sons of Confederate Veterans event in the early 1990s. Ohio's Supreme Court has struck down a state house and Senate.
Oh, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me now? Bismillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah and the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hatettes, welcome back to the features. I greet you all in peace and love and no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And before we begin, I just please ask you to like, subscribe, and share, and hit me up on Patreon. As you know, we do have a lot of haters up in here. And in today's most important topic, we are talking about this notion that keeps coming up over and over and over again about Islam being a religion of peace. And the owners of this narrative and the spreaders of this narrative. And this is a very important topic. Now, if you're wondering why I played that clip in the beginning, and it's so nice just to illustrate my point, I want to rewind this part right here again, right? So that y'all can understand the type of people that we're dealing with. Okay, so let me just share the screen. So that right here, this turtle face looking person here with that like skin neck, I don't even know what you look like, a turtle. Okay, this is Mitch McConnell. Y'all hearing me? Mitch McConnell during the Trump campaign was Donald Trump's right-hand man, okay? He was an avid Trump supporter. And the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is a lot of Muslims, they really have no clue. Like they are totally clueless about this enemy and what they're capable of. And they think that these people are just maybe misguided human beings. And I said before on this channel that these are not human beings. These are human-looking people. These are human. They look like humans, you know what I mean? And they act like human beings. And even they bleed like humans and have human body parts. Y'all hearing me? But they're not human beings. There's something different. They're shayateen. As a matter of fact, shayateen doesn't even begin to describe these people. Y'all hearing me? But Donald Trump, during his campaign, he essentially wanted to do, and he said it like very openly, a Muslim ban, meaning to prevent Muslims from coming into the country. And if you look in the beginning of this video, I played a couple of things, right? I played about the insurrection and how these human-looking people have essentially signed off on sedition and treachery and insurrection on their own country as long as it meets their own long-term goals. So they will practice all kinds of treachery and lies in order to reach their goals. There's nothing, literally nothing they will not do. So this part right here with this human-looking person, Mitch McConnell, that I played in the beginning. Like I said, he's human-looking. He looks like a human because those horns are hidden. You can't see the horns. You can't see the fork in his tongue. And you can't see his arrow-tipped tail. So because you can't see it, you're just assuming that this is a human being. But I want to play again what he said, okay? Because it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful how they put this, all right? Let's play it again.
McConnell blasted President Biden over his voting rights speech in Atlanta, Georgia earlier this week when Biden accused Republicans of siding with Jefferson Davis over Abraham Lincoln.
12 months ago, this president said disagreement must not lead to disunion. But yesterday he invoked the bloody disunion of the Civil War.
He invoked the bloody disunion of the Civil War. That's his words. Y'all hearing me? He invoked the bloody disunion. See, the adjectives that he's using to describe the Civil War is painting a picture in your head. So now you're picturing in your head something violent, something that is, like pictures of like the Civil War, with the uniforms and whatnot, and you get this idea in your head. What human beings are doing each other for control of this country. But that's how he described it, right? This bloody Civil War, meaning the picture that he's trying to put forward to you is a picture that, he opposes the Confederates, correct? He's in opposition to the violence because it was bloody. But we're not going to stop there. Let's continue with Mitch the Turtleneck McConnell.
Civil War to demonize Americans who disagree with them.
So he describes the Americans that disagree with him as being demonized. Who's this fella? Who is this fella taking pictures in front of a Confederate flag? See, that's why it's so beautiful. Like this right here. I mean, like they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. It don't get more beautiful than this. This picture right here, look how he described the Civil War. He described it as bloody. And he's describing Joe Biden like you were invoking the Civil War, this bloody Civil War, in order to demonize people that disagree with you. He got all the right words with his forked tongue, this forked tongue devil, using all the right words. But this picture betrayed everything that he just said. And it didn't just betray everything that he just said, Mitch McConnell. But there's a bigger picture than this particular picture here, because it's not about Mitch McConnell or Joe Biden, for that matter, or Donald Trump even. It's not about them. It's about an entire system and a way of doing things that can no longer be hidden from the world. This tactic of speaking against your own people group, okay, in order to gain the trust of the unsuspecting and the naive and the innocent, has been used so long by these human-looking people that it's getting more and more difficult for them to hide their tactics. He's in front of a Confederate flag. Figure that. Go figure. Go figure. And these are the same people that want to tell you about a Muslim ban because we got to stop all this violence from reaching the shores of America. This violence of these Muslims who are trying to take over, and they are trying to attack our freedoms. These are the people that you find Muslims now are trying to be like this. Y'all hearing me? I want to show you something else. This one here is an oldie but goldie, but it's very relevant to the topic that we're addressing today about this narrative about Islam being a religion of peace. See, I'm building up this argument for y'all so y'all can understand where I'm coming from. Who is teaching you to tell the world that Islam is a religion of peace? 1400 years, Islam has always been submission to the will of Allah. And after 9/11, that definition of Islam being submission to the will of Allah changed to Islam means peace. Why? We're going to get into that. But I want to show y'all something from another human-looking person. Like I said, they're human-looking. They're not actual human beings. And you're going to... Anyways, I'm going to let this woman speak, and you tell me if this is a human being or not. You put it in the comments. You tell me if a human being can say something like this. Let me share. This one here is an oldie but goldie. Oldie but goldie. Just give me a few minutes, y'all. Do y'all remember Madeleine Albright? I know most of y'all are too young to remember Madeleine Albright. You see, actually, let me just play this video and then we'll get into it. And if you're squeamish, or if you're, you have small children and they're squeamish, and I'm just warning you right now, these images are graphic. So hide your kids if you're like, or close your eyes if you're squeamish, all right?
To punish Saddam Hussein for invading Kuwait and to make sure he doesn't do anything like that again or worse, the UN imposed sanctions on Iraq, the harshest, most comprehensive sanctions in modern times. Very little goes into the country, virtually no oil goes out. The United States says there wouldn't be any sanctions at all if Saddam stopped lying about his destructive weapons and complied with UN demands. Meanwhile, it's no secret that the sanctions...
1 second, I'm going to slow this down. Okay. So I'm slowing this down, playing in normal speed.
Sanctions are causing hardships. It's not the leaders who are suffering, it's the people, and especially the children. This is a ward at a pediatric hospital in Baghdad for severely malnourished children. And everywhere we went, we saw children like these, malnourished, some close to starvation. We saw children who needed medicine they couldn't get. And this little boy died of pneumonia an hour after we took these pictures because there were no antibiotics. Jane Pierce works for the United Nations World Food Program.
Most people don't realize what's going on. They don't see pictures of babies like we just seen here. The babies that are a third of their detrimental weight. Before 1990, before the war, before these sanctions, was this all unheard of in this country? Did not exist at all.
What's the problem? How come they do not
Roger Norman, a human rights lawyer, was studying the water and sanitation plants that, like hospitals, used to have modern equipment. But Iraq has not been allowed to import chlorine under the sanctions because it could be diverted to make chemical weapons. Before sanctions, Iraq was one of the most industrialized and westernized countries in the Middle East, with a large middle class. But under the sanctions, Iraq has been forbidden to sell oil. So even though the sanctions would allow the country to buy food and medicine, Saddam Hussein claims they don't have enough money to buy them. But Madeleine Albright, the United States representative at the UN, says the sanctions haven't hurt him.
We have found out that he has spent an incredible amount of money on things that are his priorities. Let me show you for the first time what his priority is. This is the presidential yacht. And he's bought this since the sanctions.
Okay, I just want to give you some background for those of you who are too young to remember. When Saddam Hussein was being accused of having weapons of mass destruction after 9/11, the U.S. put these sanctions on Iraq. And you just heard about the chlorine. They can't get chlorine because they can be used as weapons of mass destruction. right? Do you know that they essentially sanctioned Iraq from everything? And when I say everything, I mean everything. Nothing was allowed to go in and nothing was allowed to come out. Iraq basically became a prison, so to speak. They didn't allow even pencils because they said pencils can be used and converted to make triggers for guns. That's how extreme they went. You understand? So when we're talking about terrorism, a terrorist is this. This is a terrorist. This is a terrorist. Y'all hearing me? That's a terrorist right there. What do you mean, Bilal? These are old tactics of the enemy. Look at this. This is a terrorist. This is fighting for freedom right now. These are the violent Muslims that your enemy is afraid of. And what is Madeleine Albright doing? What's she doing now?
First time what his priority is. This is the presidential yacht.
She's showing off Saddam Hussein's yacht. Family, who made Saddam Hussein to begin with? Who put Saddam Hussein in charge of Iraq to begin with? Who funded Saddam Hussein and trained him? Who was it? Put it in the chat, please. Who put Saddam Hussein in charge of that country to begin with? Did he just come out of the blue just like that? Who was it? Where are my day ones at? Where are the intelligent Muslims at? Who put Saddam Hussein in charge of Iraq? Who made him the lifetime president of Iraq? Who knows? Don't worry, we're getting deep today. We're getting very deep today. Does anybody know? It was the U.S. government who put Saddam Hussein as that president. Not only did they trained him, they backed him against the Iran-Iraq war, that bloody war. And after that Iraq-Iran war, the U.S. does what the U.S. does, and Saddam Hussein was basically left in debt. And that's when he said, you know what, I'm going to take over Kuwait and their oil fields so I can pay off this debt. And then that's when they had trouble with that relationship. Y'all hearing me? But the point is, that's their boy. That was the U.S.'s boy. But anyway, listen to what Madeleine Albright says. Oldie but goldie.
And he's bought this since the sanctions went into effect?
He has used it. It takes upkeep. Now, in addition to this presidential yacht, he has built 48 new palaces since the war, refurbished others to the tune of $1.5 billion.
She says the U.S. is trying to prevent Saddam Hussein from making and dropping a nuclear bomb or chemical weapons on other countries. And she said,
family, how many countries have a history of dropping nuclear bombs or chemical weapons on other countries? How many countries have this history? Y'all know? in the history of the world, how many countries have dropped nuclear bombs and or chemical weapons on other countries? Do you know? There's only one country in the history of the world that has a history of dropping nuclear bombs and or chemical weapons, and that is the United States of America. They're the only country on earth that has dropped a nuke on Hiroshima. And their chemical weapons, Agent Orange in Vietnam. They're only, not to mention, in Iraq, they used depleted uranium rounds in Iraq. Y'all hearing me? And then they want to lecture the world about nuclear weapons. And y'all go for it. But anyways, we're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. Let's listen to this now. Madeleine Albright, the first woman Secretary of State of the USA. Listen to this. Listen to this question now.
Says he's still lying about his weapons programs.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima.
500,000 children have died. From what sanctions? More children than Hiroshima.
And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it. It is a moral question, but
is the price worth it? 500,000 children in Iraq died. Is the price worth it? It's a difficult choice, but I think the price is worth it. Now, my question to you is, does a human being say something like this? Is this something that a human being says? That the death of 500,000 Iraqi children was worth the price to put pressure on Saddam Hussein to stop his weapons of mass destruction? And we all know about the weapons of mass destruction, correct? Like if y'all include it, correct? No weapons of mass destruction were ever found. And 500,000 children in Iraq died slow, painful deaths because of sanctions put on from the United States government. She said it was worth it. And my question is, does a human being say that? If that's a human being. Is that a human being, or is that a human-looking person? That's my question. Is that a human being, or is that a human-looking person?
In Hiroshima. And
listen, y'all.
500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it. It is a moral question, but the moral question is even a larger one. Don't we owe to the American people and to the American military and to the other countries in the region that this may not be a threat?
Okay, y'all.
To punish Saddam.
So do we not owe it to the American military and the American people that this man not be a threat? How many nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction did Saddam Hussein ever unleash on the American people? Ever? Or even intend to unleash on the American people? But this is something that the enemy says and does. This is from their tactics. in order to steal your resources. And the narrative of Islam being a peaceful religion, or Islam being a religion of peace, is a part of that tactic. Do y'all know what's going on in Guantanamo Bay right now? Guantanamo Bay, all these prisoners set up on a black site. That's why they have to do it in Guantanamo Bay, to have essentially torture tactics put on these prisoners. But they don't call it torture. They call it enhanced interrogation. Enhanced interrogation, sorry. That's what they call it. They don't call it torture. You see, when a Muslim stands up and fights for himself, they're ready to call it terrorism then. But they don't call it terrorism to starve 500,000 Iraqi children to death. It's not called terrorism then. Y'all hearing me? It's not called terrorism when this government unilaterally deposed a leader of an entire country, left, and they didn't do it once, okay? This is from the enemy's tactics. They didn't just do it once. They got away with it the first time. They did it again, and they did it again in Libya. They unilaterally assassinated Muammar Gaddafi. They deposed the leaders in Syria. They basically backed the overthrowing of Egypt. This is what they do. But they don't call that violence. They don't call that terrorism. Remember what I told you, language is important. So now what's happening is that you have a situation where in India, the Hindu extremist government is using the exact same tactics that these people brought into existence against Muslims. And the same tactics that these people mastered and implemented in the 2000s and stuff, labeling Muslims as terrorists. And the Muslims are living in fear. Nobody else living in fear. Just the Muslims living in fear. Changing the definition of Islam and everything. No, Islam means peace and stuff. What would drive a person to say that their religion means peace? Right? If that is not the original definition of that religion. Well, it has to be fear, correct? It has to be fear. It's because you're afraid of that enemy. You're afraid that they're going to be tapping your phones and going to your work. You know, you might lose your job. That's why you say that stuff. You're afraid to step on the toe of this devil. And so you start talking crazy. We are peaceful people. We want peace. We only want peace. So now you're here trying to negotiate peace with these human-looking people who don't want anything to do with peace. They talk a good game about peace. And they've been doing this for a long, long, long time. In the civil rights movement, Why was it that Martin Luther King was backed so aggressively? It's because he was protesting peacefully. You understand? He was bringing about change peacefully. And at the same time, in 2021, or 2022 rather, the same things that Black people were complaining about in the 60s are the same things that they're complaining about now. The same. Because of this peace stuff. You understand this narrative of peace? When these Muslims say, when they talk peace, they don't really mean peace. That's not the meaning behind this. What are you trying to say, Bilal? Are you trying to say we need to fight these people? Of course not. I'm not trying to say that at all. All right? Even if we tried, we wouldn't stand a chance. Right? We wouldn't. Let's be real. You know, we wouldn't stand a chance. But the whole point behind the narrative of peace is not for peace, really. That's not the point. The point is so that Muslims can run behind their Zadi leaders and live in their society and be a part of their society, integrated into this devilish society without any harm coming to them. And if you look at Guantanamo Bay, all those prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, not a single one of them in charge with any crimes. Okay? Just kidnapped and thrown into a torture chamber. Some of them been there 18 years and stuff without being charged with a single crime, getting tortured, solitary confinement. Go read and find out what they're doing in Guantanamo Bay. And these are the people that you're trying to tell that you're peaceful to? Is it appropriate to be talking about peace with somebody like this? That's what I'm asking. Is that an appropriate response? And the answer is, well, let's put this in perspective. Somebody comes to your house and tries to burn your house down. Are you going to try to start negotiating terms of peace at that moment with that person trying to burn your house down? It's one or two things, right? Either you fight that person, right? Or you run. You know what I mean? But you're not going to stay in a burning house. You're not going to stay and negotiate terms of peace of people trying to kill you. Now, what it is that all these countries, especially in the Eastern countries, they're getting so jacked up that a lot of these Easterners come to the West as refugees and stuff. They get jacked up by the same enemy, the same enemy that's jacking up is the same enemy that they're running to their countries to, right? And they just want to live in peace because they never seen peace, never witnessed peace. And not knowing that it's your enemy that caused your countries to be like this to begin with. Now is the time for regrouping, for uniting, for building, for making dawah, but not telling the enemy, yeah, we bow down. We bow. You know what I'm saying? We bow down to all your demands. Just don't hurt us. Please don't hurt us. I want to show y'all something. These are the people who want to lecture you about Islam being a violent religion. 20 years, $6 trillion, 900,000 lives. This is on Vox. And that 900,000 lives looks a bit low to me, to be honest. On the evening of September 11, hours after 2 hijacked airlines had destroyed the World Trade Center and a third hit the Pentagon building, George W. Bush announced that the country was embarking on a new kind of war. America and our friends and allies join with all who want peace. All who want peace, here it comes again, and security in the world, and we stand together to win the war against what? Terrorism. And in the 70s, with Richard Nixon, it was a war against drugs. And who was this war against drugs? Well, was it really a war against drugs? No, it wasn't a war against drugs. It was a war against Black people. It was about the destruction of the Black community, that war against drugs. They were they were the ones bringing the drugs into the country, putting it into Black neighborhoods, as well as guns. Ain't no Black gun factories in the hood. How all these guns get there? And then they turn around and say, we got to fight this war against drugs. Ronald Reagan, it was a war against crime. Where were the criminals? The black community. Now, George Bush, the war against terrorism. All these wars they got to fight in the U.S. in order to subdue and exploit darker people of the earth. Who's a terrorist? You are the terrorist. And on top of that, you have Muslims who essentially buy into this type of ethno-identity of Islam. You know what I mean? They talk about, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, man. They be talking about Islamophobia and stuff. I gotta say it, man. They've been talking about Islamophobia and Islam mean peace and all this kind of stuff, right? So now this Islam becomes like an ethnic group. It's no longer like a religion anymore. It's this type of ethnic group. What did George Bush call Saddam Hussein and he called him the axis of evil? He is not evil. 500,000 children starving and dying of curable diseases, that's not evil. As saw the U.S. invade depose the governments of two nations and engage in years or decades-long occupation of each. The initiation of a new form of warfare via drones spanning thousands of miles of territory from Pakistan to Somalia to Philippines. The formalization of a system of detention without charge, Guantanamo Bay, okay, and pervasive torture, enhanced interrogation, okay, of accused militants. See, y'all think that if you talk this peace talk, then maybe they won't accuse me of being militant, and therefore they won't send me to Guantanamo Bay and whatever. That's why y'all talk this peace stuff. And the Prophet sallallahu, he mentioned that this time that we're living in, it will come because of your fear of death and your love of the life of this world. And that's why you act like that. That's why you talk so crazy about Islam is peace and stuff. The war on terror is a purposely vague term. President Barack Obama famously rejected it in a 2013 speech, favoring instead a series of persistent targets, efforts to dismantle specific networks of violence. You see, this so-called war on terror, if you look at what they did in Afghanistan, trillions of dollars spent. We did a video on this. And then they just left. Why? Because a bigger threat was coming from China or whatever. But all it was feeding this military industrial complex and making people very rich off of military contracts. So much so that today, militarism has become a commercial enterprise. It's no longer restricted to the government anymore. It is a commercial enterprise. So, do you guys remember Blackwater? These are the people you are talking peace with. These are the people you're telling them that Islam is a peaceful religion. Instead of preparing for what's coming, you're trying to convince these people who have no history of peace, no history of keeping their promises or keeping their word or even telling the truth. You're trying to convince them that you are peaceful. They know you're peaceful, and they're banking on you telling them that you're peaceful. Do you know Christopher Columbus, when he arrived in the shores of the Caribbean, and he started seeing what he called Indians, he wrote about them. And he wrote, these are the people that we're talking about, okay? He wrote that these people are very peaceful and very giving. They will give you anything. They're very generous and hospitable. He's talking about the native Indians. He's giving them all these good traits. They're hospitable, they're generous, they're friendly. He's writing this, okay? They share everything. They share everything. They're helpful. And then after he writes all these good traits, you know what he says? He says, they will make great servants for us. That's who you're telling. That's who you're telling that you want to be peaceful. Those people. And you so happy to oblige them. See, because you still have like fitra with you. You see what I'm saying? You still have like some sort of semblance of what it is to be a human being. You have that still. But these people, they are looking for ways to exploit you. And when you start speaking like that, you oblige them. Let's keep reading. But 9/11 signaled the beginning of a distinct policy regime from one that preceded it, and a regime that exists in many forms to the present day, even with the U.S. exit from Afghanistan. Over the past 20 years, the cost of this new policy regime, cost in terms of lives lost, money spent, people and whole communities displaced, bodies tortured, have become clear. What behooves us then is to try to answer a simple yet vast question: was it worth it? And what did Madeleine Albright say? Do you want to leave virtue and righteousness and what's good, and the definition of good and evil, in the hands of these people? These people? It's because you're afraid of power. They're the ones in power right now, correct? It's not because they're peaceful. They're not peaceful. They're not righteous. You're talking about some of the most devilish people, probably the most devilish people in human history. The most destructive people in human history. They will kill millions and not even lose an eyelash, bat an eyelash about it, or lose a split second of sleep over it. These are the type of people you want to tell that Muslims are peaceful. Muslims are peaceful. Islam's a peaceful religion. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Abdullah Isa.
Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullah here, barakatuh.
What you got for us, bro?
Yeah, well, Aki, did you ever get into that where them books was under Suleiman's throne?
Yeah, I somebody sent me some information about that, and I read that. Yes.
Yeah, see, now the Knights Templar who were Jews, they went and got them books during one of the sieges of Jerusalem.
You know,
and they're using it. There's other literature that talks about that they learned how to talk to the jinn. So they're talking to the jinn.
The thing is, this is already about talking to the jinn. Is already mentioned in the Quran, anyways, right? In
the Quran.
Yeah. So about sihr and whatnot. This is something that we know, right? This is something.
Yeah, but they use, and this is what I'm saying. The shaitan blamed Allah for him not making obeisance to Adam alayhi salam. So he blamed Allah, he blamed Adam. Now dig this. In the Bible, this goes throughout the Bible with black prophets, messenger prophets, and the Messiah. They put the worst sins on them black prophets. They got Moses sacrificing little girls to his God. They got Adam alayhi salam giving original sin to babies. Yeah, this is some serious evil. They was talking. I believe the shaitan said, "Get them niggas."
All right, Jazakallah khair, bro. Thank you so much. Yeah. So about black prophets, I'm not quite sure about what's going on in the Bible and stuff, but this is what we know, right? We know that these people, of course, they deal with jinn, right? Of course, they deal with jinn. This is something that's well known. Even if you whatchamacallit? Wow, what's the book I'm thinking about? Anyways, what's known is that a lot of these people are Freemasons and Illuminati types, and they're used to dealing with jinn and stuff like that. So when we're talking about these people, and you actually pay attention to what they're saying, a lot of what they're doing, they get orders from shayateen anyways, because they're human-looking people. And even Allah mentions in the Quran about the jinn from the ins, so the shayateen from the ins and the jinn, from the mankind and the human and the jinn. You understand? So let me see what we got here. Well, Spurs preached to Muslims not to rebel against oppressive rulers. So many Muslims are already pliable. Well, in Islam, the truth is in Islam, we don't have the concept of rebelling against the leadership or the Muslim leadership. This is a fact, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned this explicitly. You know what I mean? He mentioned this explicitly. And this is another tactic of the enemy, how they exploit Islam and use these fine points in order to rile up the emotions of the Muslims. So now it's easy for them to find ignorant Muslims who will just go into the Muslim lands and think that they're making jihad and stuff. You feel me? So on one hand, you have this overly modernist, I guess, I don't know how to even describe it, like almost like irja, or I wouldn't say irja, like it's like this type of pacifist. It's very pacifist. This overly pacifist ideas about Islam, and then on the other hand, you have this overly aggressive, Khariji, Takfiri type outlook on Islam. You know what I mean? So, Brother Seaman, what you got for us, bro? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the Muslims already been made to be like pliable, because in like many of their countries, you know, we got certain sects that tell them that, you know, you can't rebel against the ruler anyway, no matter what he does. The other point I was finna make is I heard the brother you know, speaking about the jinn. I thought he was kind of like far out, but but then it started to make sense though, because I remember a hadith was reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that some speech is magic. So I think that, you know, sometimes Muslims might think, you know, they might think just like, you know, doing rituals and, you know, like the sorcerers do. But I think there's a very strong possibility that magic, matter of fact, I'm confident, you know, because of that hadith, that magic is also like what the Europeans been practicing, like, you know, through their propaganda and, you know, basically what you were speaking on, like we only want peace, and, you know, we got to fight for freedom. This guy's evil. Look what he does to his own people. That sort of thing. So I think that, you know, we might get caught up in, you know, like the tricknology that they use.
Yeah, and tricknology is real, actually. It's not a joke, and it's a very serious thing. And if you look at Fir'aun, alayhi salam, he was using magic.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he is the most famous suppressor in history, and his tactics are the same. Like if you look at what these guys do, they use the same tactics that Fir'aun was using. So why would he? Even people have written about the Illuminati and the Freemasons and whatnot, and the magic that they actually do and they practice. Right? I can't remember what's the guy's name. It's a very famous guy, the guy who invented the whatchamacallit, the rocket. What's his name again?
Jack Parsons.
Yeah, him, Jack Parsons. He was an avid warlock. You know what I mean? Avid warlock, avid Satanist. You understand?
And because of the rockets, you know, that he used, this Satan worshiper, that's how they're able to, you know, launch satellites and space shuttles.
Well, he admitted that he was working with the jinns, getting these ideas from the jinn.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Right. He admitted that. You see what I'm saying? All these, there's not been a president that I can think of that wasn't a Freemason, except for maybe Donald Trump and maybe John F. Kennedy, right? But if you have a country where all your presidents are Freemasons and nobody's saying anything, like, you know what I mean? Of course, there's magic involved. You know what I'm saying? But my whole thing is, what are Muslims doing? You know what I'm saying? What are Muslims really doing?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what you touched on. You know, during your speech, when you said that these people are just human, like lookalikes. I think that many people will find it hard to believe that, you know, human beings could be so diabolical, because you would think that most people probably don't think like this. So, you know, even though they see it, they're in denial, like, you know, maybe it's just a conspiracy theory, you know, that sort of thing. I don't think they really, you know, want to fully grasp, you know, the reality of the situation and what these people are all about. So, yeah, I think it's like difficult for them to sort of understand. But we read the Quran, like we seen Pharaoh doing this. People have been doing this, you know, like, he came up with a conspiracy to kill the male children and leave the women alive.
He actually did it.
Exactly. So, you know, I don't think Allah is telling us these stories, you know, just for the sake of telling us. Like, it's some benefit in it. Like, we can learn. Like, people, I think, and Allah knows best, but from what I get from there, he's telling us that because people are still doing this. Like, you know, don't be naive. People are still have the heart, the mind of like Pharaoh.
Exactly. And what I see happening in our time is that all of these these stories that we hear from the Quran and from the Sunnah, they're kind of converging all into one in our time. You understand? So we have, for example, Fir'aun. That's a big one. Like these people. That's why they call them. The whole point of Freemasonry is to attach yourself to Fir'aun. You understand? That whole concept, because they believe that they were the descendants of the Masons that built the pyramids. You understand? And so there's 360 degrees of knowledge and whatnot, and they have they're like the master Masons and whatnot, and certain secret knowledge and blah, and it's all this esoteric speak, but they believe that stuff. That's the point, and they believe it to the point that they act upon these Pharaonic ideas, right? So, and also if you look at Komalut, for example, right? How they're all coming out of the woodworks and they're gaining power, they're gaining influence. You understand? If you look in the entertainment industry, there's a legit thing called the gay mafia, right? And now we see the spoils of their labor. You understand? You can't, any entertainment that you watch right now in 2022, it's not entertainment. It's political propaganda and a type of what's that word? Subversion. It's subversion tactics. So it's not necessarily for entertainment. What it is, it's to desensitize people to these ideas. So every show you watch has to have, for example, a black lesbian, you know what I mean, or some homosexual, whatever. They have to have it, and they have to express it in the first episode and celebrate it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you mentioned I think you had spoken on Muslims, like they want you to say that you're all about peace. They're banking on it.
Yes, because it's not necessarily about people like me who've seen the change.
Right.
And we're warning the youth about this change. It's about the youth, because if they get this messaging from when they're small, by the time they're in their 20s, that messaging becomes normalized.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's not really for, people, my age or, it's not really for them. But I was thinking when you said that, because I remember, tuning in, and you was also speaking about how the U.S. government was spending like millions of dollars to like study like masculinity in Africa.
Yeah. In Africa.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's a real thing. Not only that, but there's a project from the military, U.S. military, and this is real, right? There's a project from the U.S. military where they try to basically effeminize or homosexualize men, like a legit military project. If I can find it, I'll put it up on screen.
Right. I think that's definitely why the LGBT movement is so potent over here. I think that's what they're trying to do to like our men. Because why would they go to Africa?
There's no doubt about it. Like we see the effects of it, and it's not even like they're not even being subtle about it. You see what I'm saying? Like we legit the black community, we see the effects of this.
Yeah, right? once all your men become like feminine, like there's nothing to fear from them. And on top of that, if they become homosexuals, then that further sort of destroy your population, keep your population in check. So there's a number of different angles on why I think that the enemy would see that as beneficial tool or tactic for them to use. Because the Europeans are experiencing zero population. They're like below zero population growth. I remember Pat Buchanan wrote a book about that, The Death of the West. And it was talking about how, zero population growth is like every time one dies, one's born. Well, they're like below that. I even seen in Europe, they're actually paying their citizens to like have children, like in different countries.
I saw that too.
Yeah. So,
and when we say paying their citizens, what we mean is paying white people. We got to be very clear about that, right? Because they're not paying no black people to go and have more babies in their country, even if they're citizens. You understand? We're talking. I think it's like places like Denmark and I can't remember, but these type of Baltic places or whatever, right? These Alps places, whatever. They're actually paying their citizens to have more children. You know, because they themselves have been affected by the evil that their people has spread on the earth. So they believe in small families and stuff. You know what I mean?
And the thing that I found, to be remarkable was they're struggling. They want their people to have children, and meanwhile, they encourage our people, to kill their babies in the womb.
Yep.
You understand? Like they encourage, and we fall for that. They tell you stuff like, if you don't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars, you shouldn't even have a baby. And this is nonsense. Allah say, don't kill your children for fear of poverty. He'll provide for them and you, but they have somehow brainwashed a lot of our people that you should kill your babies. Like you're never going to be able to make it. If that was the case, we wouldn't have the numbers in America right now. Our people always been poor. We should have all been dead if we would have listened to that.
Mm-hmm.
Our numbers would be even lower now. Like this, I think this is just like a tool, a scare tactic, so that young people do kill their children, and your numbers won't rise while our study continue to increase. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is something I want to cover tomorrow. Actually, what you mentioned, and I had planned to mention this particular thing, but since you brought it up, I'll just say that the most dangerous place for a Black person is the Black womb. You understand? Because more Black people are slaughtered in the Black womb than anywhere else. Right? I believe since the 70s, there have been 65 million abortions from Black women. 65 million. Do you know how big 65? There's not 65 million Black people in America today. You understand? That's how many Black abortions have been performed since the 70s. You understand? So this is a major thing. But again,
I often ask myself, what type of people are foolish enough to believe because someone else told you it was okay to kill your child that you would do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like the level of psychological trauma that must have, been done on a person to let someone else con you into believing that it's okay to kill your children because we make it legal. Like this totally goes against the fitra of any person. You would think this is like so normal, like kill your children. Like, come on, man. And then they pretend like
this goes right back to what we're tying into this topic about this taking our marching orders and what is peace and what is not peace and who is evil and who is not evil from the devil in themselves. These people are devils. Let's call them what they are. You understand?
And I used to be sort of skeptical about people like Kevin Samuels. I saw your video. I saw your video on it, based on what the brother Muhammad Hijab had said, and it made sense. Like a lot of what he's doing is, I think, is beneficial, especially for our community, because a lot of our women have been, sort of bewitched. Bewitched, and that ties into it. I can, it's my body, and the feminists, my body, and killing your kids. All of that goes into what he's talking about. If you really look, deeper into, his message, at least in its totality, it all ties into all of this.
Yeah, the government spent a lot of money on spreading Black feminism in the 60s. You understand?
And the thing I tell Black women, especially like you're talking about, like feminists, you want to be a feminist. These feminists are always talking about, men get paid more, et cetera, but you never see the white feminists that they follow talk about how the white woman is making more money than the Black woman. How come they never call for equality? Between those two,
making more money than the Black man, and that's the whole point. The whole point of this feminism to begin with. Feminism really, it was a reaction to slavery. Let's just be real, okay? In fact, let me get this book for you, right? Have you guys ever seen this book? This book right here. They were her property. You know this book?
Yeah, yeah.
They were her property. Okay, this book.
Matter of fact, I just got it. I haven't read it, but I just got it not too long ago. I haven't started it yet.
Yeah, so I'm should be finishing up this book soon, but it's written by Stephanie E. Jones, right? Stephanie E. Jones Rogers, and she's basically going through the history of female slave owners, and she's going through the documents and the actual eyewitness testimonies and statements. And these women are just as vicious as the men. And the reason why there was this type of feminist movement is because during the slavery period, right, the men were the ones who were the owners of everything. So if a woman got married to a man at those times, she had to basically pass over her property to the man. And what was the most liquid asset at that time?
Of course, slaves.
It was slaves, right? It was slaves, right? Slaves were the most liquid and profitable asset at that time. You understand? So what happened was these women would start to go to the courts in order to keep their property. You understand? So even the men would write in their wills that, in their wills that their daughters get so much land and so many slaves and whatnot, right? And when these women went into these marriages with these men and whatever, they would make what is, how we have the prenuptial agreements for men in our time?
Yes.
In those times, it was called anuptial agreements. So the women were signing these anuptial agreement, basically saying that, my property is my property, even if something happens to this marriage. You understand? It's crazy, right? So
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was always wondering, like, why would the Euro-American male give power over to so much, power over to the Euro-American woman, especially when it comes to marriage? They would be hurt. They will be hurt in marriage these days. So what I'm gathering from what you're saying, they did it because this was for the rich family. So their children could keep their property.
Exactly. Exactly. Wow. You understand? So that's what it was. It was an argument for white women to keep their slaves. So what happened was after the Civil War, right? What were Black people doing in this time? They were voting. And there was a time called Reconstruction after the Civil War between 1865 to about 1875 or something like that, right? No, hold on. 1879 or something. Like it was a 12-year period, right? And it was this time that there were more Black senators, Black people in politics, Black churches, Black institutions, in any part of American history. It was this time.
Right.
You understand? And what do you think white women were complaining about? What do you think they were complaining about?
Inequality.
Inequality. Why? Because these Black people were getting their rights before these white women. So that's basically what this feminist movement was about, right? Because these white men, when they came to America and whatnot, it was a patriarchal society. The men had to be in charge. The men had to be the owners. It was about the men, right? That's something that Europeans were doing. In Islam, women always had ownership of their property. You understand? Women didn't have to fight for ownership of their property.
Right.
But these white women from Europe, they were the ones who were fighting for ownership of their property.
Yeah, that's one of their most relied upon techniques these days. The women's rights issue. You see when they invaded Muslim countries, what's the first thing they would say? We have to free women in the burqa. They get job. They're oppressed.
Exactly.
You know, they try to spread it over there.
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying, especially if you're Muslim, and even more so as a Black Muslim, because we right now are at the bottom of the totem pole, right, so to speak, right, is that we need to learn the lessons of history, and we need to learn the lessons of our enemies. You understand? They haven't changed.
Yeah, they won't change. I often tell brothers, like, all you have to do is like actually read their works. Like they tell you what they're about. Like they praise people like Thucydides and Machiavelli. And when you read Thucydides, he mentions like when the Spartans and the Athenians were at war, like their main line was from the Athenians to the people of Milos was when they was talking about justice to them, the Athenians would say justice is only a question between equals. So if you don't have any might or not willing to fight, it goes back to what you were saying, just talking about you a peaceful person. They don't feel like they have to be just with you. They believe that might lies. They believe that right lies in might.
Thank you. And that is exactly how they think. So now once you know this and you understand this, right? Should you be reacting, or should you be, planning to better your situation? You understand? This type of reactionary movements, especially that Black people make and Muslims make, that needs to stop, because otherwise these people are playing chess. They're playing, as a matter of fact, they're playing three-dimensional chess, and we're trying to figure out how to play checkers still. So they just make a move. They already predict and know how we're going to react based upon the move they made, and they just act accordingly because they planned. We're the ones who are not planning.
Right. Everything is just reactionary from our point of view. We're unorganized.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's one of the reasons why they fear the Chinese. Every time I hear them talk about the Chinese, they always say they plan 100 years in the future with their plans, and I think that's one of the reasons why they fear it.
They learned that from these same people. Communism didn't start in China.
Exactly.
Where did they learn communism from?
Marx.
Exactly.
Marx. Yeah,
they are studying their tactics, and they're learning, they're adapting. It's us. We're the ones who are slow. You know what I'm saying? Now, and I keep saying, is that a them problem, or is that an us problem?
Yeah, it's like many of us just don't want to do better. Yeah. I think that many of us probably fear, and a lot of our brothers too, immigrant communities, because they were colonized too. I think that we kind of like fear a world without Europeans. Like we'd rather trust them to be in power than someone that looks like us. We fear more being oppressed by us than them.
And that's a problem. That is the problem, because you can't trust a single one of them. I'm sorry to say it like that. You can't trust a single one of them, right? And the only ones really that we should be trusting is Allah first, right? We have to trust Allah first. And we have to plan according to what Allah has revealed in the Quran and the Sunnah. And we have to plan together, right? And that's why I say right now, the best thing for the Muslims to do in the society at large is twofold: make da'wah, right? Call the people to Islam, and then stay on code with the Muslims.
But one thing I do see, though, since I've been hearing you, speaking on these topics, I see a lot more Muslims from our community, from our people, being they seem to become a lot more aware. I hear them even speaking about these issues now since you started. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, very good thing. And then, there's a lot of other Black people, that's waking up in this country. A lot of them are saying, like, we're done with Joe. You hear that a lot now. The Democrats are just like the Republicans. And, Joe won't be getting our vote. they tricked us again. Not no more. You know, you hear this sort of thing. I hope it's true. But yeah, it's good to see us starting to wake up. But I think that a lot of our immigrant brothers, since they was colonized, a lot of them, they sort of look down upon us because they get taught to do this. And that's another one of the enemy's, you know, tactics. Perhaps one of their oldest tactics, you know, to divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. You're better than these people. And, you know, they're late.
Well, here's the thing too with the immigrant communities, and they're looking down on us, right? It's because now what's happening is the enemy, the same tactics they use on Black people, is they're using on the immigrants, and we see it. That's why I made that comparison with the terrorism and the war on criminals or war on crime, right? Remember back in the 80s, take a bite out of crime. Remember that? I don't know how old you are, but but remember the crime dog, the commercial, take a bite out of crime. Remember that? Remember the egg, you know? Maybe somebody can find the link and put it in the chat, and then we'll play it, right? These old commercials that they used to play, right? And the egg.
Yeah, I remember that little egg.
Remember that? Right?
Yeah, this is your brain on drugs. And
yeah,
I remember
who were
that.
the criminals though?
Yeah, the war on drugs was just it was just a euphemism for a war on the blacks.
On the Black community, yes.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah, and it all came out in the 90s, how under the Reagan administration, the CIA was bringing crack into the Black community in order to fund the Contras in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And to purchase weapons for Iraq, for the Iran-Iraq war. And how were they funding it? With drugs,
cocaine,
from cocaine money in the Black community. That's your citizenship.
And then I think many of us.
These are the people that are giving you lessons on who is evil and who isn't. You understand? And if you know this, if you know that this is what these people were doing, and you're a Muslim, then how do you sign off on their narrative if you are a self-respecting Muslim? You feel me?
Yeah, I think that many of the Muslims are unaware, especially the immigrant Muslims. I think that they think they know the history of this country. You know, they probably read textbooks, but, you know, they're not people of the land, so they don't really know. They don't have the same history. You know, typically, you know, many so-called blacks, you know, in this country, they don't really trust the government anyway or believe anything they say typically. But, you know, with the immigrant communities, they, you know, they sort of think they know what's going on, but they don't really know. And I think that's what the brother Tahir Wyatt and others was talking about. Like, what was the brother name from Florida, from New York? Abu Toba. Abu Toba. When he was speaking, like, let us handle it. And your boy Wajdi, remember, he's with his homeboys. Look at him. He's saying, let us handle it, guys. You're too stupid. Let us handle it. See, they don't really understand.
Yeah.
They think they know.
Not only do they not understand, but they feel comfortable in pointing their finger at us while not helping us. I saw something on YouTube the other day. A non-black person, okay, who doesn't have any knowledge about Islam. Let's be clear. He's not a knowledgeable person about Islam at all, right? He was debating an Israelite. Go on YouTube right now and find how many Muslims, right, black Muslims, do you find just debating Hebrew Israelites like that? It's not a thing, right? Because we know how to talk to our people. Even Nation of Islam is not a thing. We don't do that. We talk to our people, right? And we try to bring them to the truth. But this non-black person, he thought it was a good idea to put a debate and mind you, he's not black and he's not knowledgeable either. But he wanted to put a debate against himself and Hebrew Israelite. And what do you think the reaction of black people is going to be like about that when they see that? You think they're going to have a good reaction to that?
Not at all.
Yeah. Not at all. Who told them it was a good idea? But they feel comfortable doing that stuff.
Yeah,
they feel comfortable calling black people, other black people, racist and supremacist and whatnot. They're good with that. But these are the same people who will never, ever, ever call the real racist and the real supremacist racist and supremacist. But we don't do that here. We do it here on this channel. We actually do that. We call out real racism and real white supremacists, and we're not afraid to do it.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of cooning going on over there, man. Like these guys were like colonized. They've been sort of whitewashed too. So, you know, they want to take the side of the dominant society.
Yeah.
I just seen something the other day was saying like the Arabs are now was a certain segment of the Arabs here in the US. They're trying to, you know, change the census where they no longer have to register as white all of a sudden. You know, they want to be, I guess, considered like minorities. And the bad part about it, like they show so much contempt and little respect for black people. And many of the rights that they enjoy over here was fought for by so-called black people in this country.
Exactly.
Like you're benefiting off the blood, the deaths, the pain, the sorrow of my people who fought to, you know, sort of.
Yeah, you just showed up. You just showed up and you got the rights. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to protest. You didn't have to die. You didn't have to get lynched. You just showed up. You just got here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You started benefiting off, and we still don't benefit, right? But again, is that an us problem? Is that a them problem?
Yeah, a lot of us definitely, especially among the Muslims. You know, we're so quick to, you know, run to and try to get a fatwa from, you know, some foreign sheikh about the reality of on the ground here. Like I always wonder, like, why are you doing that? Like, do they know better than you?
We're gonna watch this video real quick, right? A sister sent it to me. Just give me 1 second. Let me share this video. All right. So this is the one I'm talking about, man.
McGruff here. See that guy? He's stealing at Pike. Now, see that lady? She's calling the cops. Meanie Martha, part of the Eyes and Ears Patrol in Hartford, Connecticut. There's 126 of them, regular people, working together to help prevent crime. You know, you could do that. Find out how. Write the box 6600 Rockville, Maryland. You'll be helping to take a bite out of crime.
Remember that?
Yeah. Hey, it's very clever how they did that too. They got a white guy against the van with a black police arresting the white guy. But
yeah, but what really happened though? We know what really happened. We know what really happened.
Yeah, that's that sorcery we was talking about. That's that
exactly.
magic.
Exactly. Again, that's an us problem, and we're not fixing it without Allah. I'm sorry, it's not happening without Allah. Right, so we have to get Allah on our side, of course, and of course we have to take other things very seriously, very, very seriously. Things that we don't take seriously right now, and that is because the enemy has built our culture for us in order to take the serious things not serious and the not serious things serious. You understand? So we have a culture in the black community of looking for symbolic wins. That's our culture. You know, we're gonna tear down this statue. You feel me? We're gonna go to Congress and get a voting rights bill and whatnot. All this symbolic stuff that don't mean anything and don't do anything. And it hasn't done anything for the better part of 60 years. Right? When it comes to, you know, unity, right? And if you want
got a black president.
Yeah, exactly. We got a black president. Yeah. Even Jay-Z made a song about it and everything. My president is black. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Like that's what we're after. Like symbolism. We're not going after land. We're not going after education. We're not going after tangibles.
Yeah, I mean, we as Muslims, especially, you know, in the black community, we have to definitely, you know, try to be a good example and, you know, spread the dawah amongst our people. Like you say, we're not going to get out of this without Allah. And I would say it's even for the benefit of even the Euro-Americans, because the narrative has to change. Like someone else needs to introduce new values and bring Allah into the picture, because it would even save the Euro American. It would even save them, because if we leave them in power, the country, the world is going to hell in a rocket ship.
We've seen them in power for the better part of 500 years.
Yeah, it's not working.
Yeah,
it's not working. We should see that these people have no idea even what they're doing. They have all their experts. You go to Afghanistan, you can't even win there. You spend trillions and trillions of dollars.
Well, it wasn't about winning, right? It was about whatchamacallit, profiteering. It was never about winning. They didn't go into Afghanistan to if you ask what was the goal of that war to begin with, they can't tell you. Like, what are you trying to accomplish in your goal? They don't know.
It's always about the money. To put more money in Halliburton and
Halliburton and Blackwater and
like, you know, once you start privatizing, like hiring mercenaries, you know, that should already, you know, tell anybody with half a brain something. That, you know, it's all about the money. You know, I would think that most people in America would know by now that this country is sort of ran by the captains of Wall Street. You would think that that's known now, like the corporate structure, the corporate entities run this country. They control the politicians. I mean, when they're donating money to their parties, when you essentially made bribery legal, I mean, your country's over. You make bribery legal. Like, that's all it is. Like as
long as people are you know, they want to support the system, then it's going to continue, right? Because in our time, people rather be comfortable than uncomfortable, and they threaten, and they're willing to put people into massive discomfort in order to achieve their goals. Whereas regular human beings, they don't do that. And that's why I keep saying that they're not human. They're human looking, right? But a regular human being can't think to starve 500,000 children to death and say that it's worth it to prevent somebody from using weapons of mass destruction. A human being doesn't say that. A devil will say that, yeah, no doubt.
Or to give people syphilis, just to see how they react in their body, not treat them. They also did the same thing in Guatemala. They actually gave those people syphilis in Guatemala. You know, so yeah, they've been doing this.
They have a long history of germ warfare. They did smallpox with the Indians, syphilis. They did AIDS, Ebola, you name it. A long history. And then they turn around and try to say, "Why aren't you black people taking these vaccines?" And stuff, right? You know what I'm saying?
AIDS came from a green monkey somewhere in Africa, and
and
the Omicron virus came from South Africa. Stop it!
You can't find the green monkey narrative on Google anywhere. You can't find it. It doesn't exist. It's sponged from the internet. And now you have all these kids who are looking for the orange or the AIDS. They can't find that, right? But we grew up. We know, and that's why I said like this indoctrination is not for us. It's for our children, so that they can grow up and think a certain way and act a certain way. It's called subversion. But anyways, back to white people. All right. The thing that the George Floyd protest showed is that there are a lot of white people who are sick of white supremacy themselves. A lot. They want it to end. And those, even they need Islam, right? Of course, the whole world needs Islam. But if the image of Islam that you're portraying to the world are these pacifist, poor, you know, not interested in money people, right, who don't own anything, right, then what incentive do people really have to become Muslim? Your dawah better be on point. Your dawah better be on point. The type of Muslims that we see in the mainstream are Muslims that are friendly to the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the Sheikh, I'm gonna say his name, Sheikh Asim, and this guy was talking about the protest, and he was like, "What do you see? People being beat up because they're white?" And I'm thinking, like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. I send you the video.
Send me that video, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the video. I said, like, what is he talking about? Most of the protesters are white.
Are white. The vast majority of them are white.
Yeah,
not even close. It wasn't even close.
Okay, I appreciate the talk, Aki. I'm gonna find the video. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now.
All right.
Inshallah.
All right, Jazakallah khair, bro. All right, bros. So we'll talk for a couple of more minutes and wait for this video to come up. Or actually, if I can get the brother Seema to just put the video in the comments, and then maybe we can do a video about that, inshallah. Right? But yeah, we're gonna call it a night. Thanks for everybody who participated. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Wa shadala ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.